Welcome to the Professor Network. Today we have with us Dr. Pamela Seeds, who is a clinical lecturer at the University of Waterloo and one of my personal favorites. Dr. Seeds does this awesome exercise in her developmental psychology class where she brings what she calls little humans to our lecture hall filled with around 300 students and makes us guess their age. I'm so happy you decided to talk to us, Dr. Seeds. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit more about the classes you teach at UW and your other roles within the university?
Sure, absolutely. I can talk about that. So in my role at the university, I teach a combination of undergraduate and graduate coursework, predominantly in my areas of expertise. So I'm a clinical psychologist, so I teach a lot of classes related to clinical psychology, like psychopathology, child psychopathology, introduction to clinical psychology. And because one of my focuses is really on psychopathologies that can present in children, I also have to really have a good understanding of normative development. So as you already said, one of the classes that I sometimes teach is developmental psychology, so to Psych 211. And then I also sometimes teach some upper year courses, again, usually in the field of clinical psychology. So if I think about which classes I have this coming year, I'll be doing a research methods course in personality and clinical psychology, and also a fourth year honors seminar in my sort of research area of specialization, which is depression. And then I guess beyond teaching, because that was the second part of your question, I also serve as an academic advisor for undergraduate students in the psychology department. So in that role, I predominantly meet with students who have an interest in more applied kinds of interests. So whether or not that's sort of medical school or thinking about clinical psychology or social work or some other kind of career, or students who aren't even sure what they want to do, they just know they want to help people. That's often a common thing that people come in with, and I'll sort of talk with them about a variety of different types of professions. It's one of the fortunate things in my own graduate training and in my professional career. I've worked alongside a number of other professionals, and I have at least some sense of what they do. Certainly, I'm not trained to be a speech language pathologist or an occupational therapist, but I know what those professions do. So when students have an interesting combination of things that they're they talk about what they like in school, sometimes I'm able to point them in the right direction to figure out what they might want to do after their psychology undergrad. And then I'm sort of an active member within our clinical area. In the Department of Psychology, we have several of us. So we have faculty meetings, we have research and development brown bag sort of presentations that we do weekly. We participate in workshops. So I'm sort of an active member of that part of our department as well.
So you keep incredibly busy at this university.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes.
So you are also a registered psychologist. Could you talk to me about what sparked your interest in this particular career and the steps you took to get to where you are?
Right. So you are correct. I'm a registered clinical psychologist in the province of Ontario. And if you had asked me in high school if I was going to be that when I grew up, for sure you would have gotten a big fat no to that question. I don't know what I thought psychology was all about. I obviously had a really messed up idea of what it was because I definitely didn't think that was for me. So I began really good at and interested in sort of more, we'll call them hard sciences. So things like biology, chemistry, math. And in my sort of when I was leaving high school, applying to undergrad, I applied to programs that really were focused on that. So the program I ended up at was a double major in biology and mathematics. And not surprisingly, for any of you who've taken a math course in university, you will know that the numbers disappear and it is all mathematical proofs with formulas and epsilons and deltas. And I was really, really upset by this. So much, in fact, that I really did quite terrible. I'm pretty sure I got a 36% on my first midterm in my first year in our first year calculus, which was, of course, the calculus for math majors, and experienced a professor who basically said, you better go find another major, which of course is heartbreaking when you think that you're destined to become a math and biology major and maybe you're going to go to med school or something like that. So I did a year of soul searching, we'll say, after having taken advantage of every type of resource that our university had. So I was at Queen's, so I went to counseling services, I went to the career center, I did like academic advising, I saw everyone in every possible office that could help students. And really the solution was based on like my interests. When you fill out questionnaires, what was missing from all of these more, I don't know, call them dry, but somewhat dry maybe, subjects was this more creative element that is part of my personality and maybe is more extroversion or more interest in wanting to have human connection. And really, when you're in a lab, it can be a pretty isolating event, or when you're writing big, long proofs, you don't need friends around. You don't need to talk about. And when I thought about the part of biology class that I liked the most, it really was the human anatomy and human sort of physiology aspect. And the clinical psychologist so the course was amazing. First of all, I was like, oh, look, there's people, like the science of being human, who doesn't want to like take this. It came to me really easily. So I wasn't having to work my butt off like I was in math, where I barely was scraping by. I was like, oh, I can, like, this is clicking in my brain for some reason. And the teachers were absolutely phenomenal. So the clinical psychologist who taught that part of the course, actually, I would say probably was my mentor throughout undergrad. I tried to get into her lab as soon as possible as a volunteer. I tried to do, special research projects with her. I really wanted to do my honors thesis with her, and I ended up being able to do that. And really, she's the person who helped guide me through how to even apply for graduate school, or where I should apply for graduate school, or what it would be to be a clinical psychologist. And so then I applied all over North America and interviewed a bunch of places, got auto rejects from a bunch of places, and ended up going to graduate school at Western. And I don't think ever really looked back since then. So I did my master's and my PhD, and then all of the various hoops that you have to go through to become a licensed practitioner. And truthfully, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, would say, this was the right thing. I wish you'd known or been smarter when you were, younger, to have not had to sort of take so long, because I also had to take some extra time, therefore, to finish my undergrad, and extra time to then finish my grad school. And I know this might not seem like a big deal, but in my head, when I was young, I was like, oh, I want to be done school before I'm 30. I was not done school before I was 30. I was past that. It's fine. But when you're young, you get really worked up about what you're going to have accomplished by the time you're 30. You want a job and a house and kids and all of those things. And yeah, we did not have those things necessarily.
So our incoming students have a question, because we're going into a new semester where everything's going to be different. They were wondering how important office hours are, and how they're going to be different with classes being online, professors being behind a computer screen.
Right. So I can imagine, just thinking about some of the classes I'll be teaching, I don't have a first year class this coming fall term, but office hours, I think, are going to be one of the ways that you can get some of that personalized attention from a prof. So when we think about our big lecture halls, normally you can raise your hand and like be that keener who has all those questions and is like reflecting and like wanting more during the lecture. And you're not going to have that opportunity while we are doing asynchronous activities online. The answer is really going to be like trying to connect with your prof or your TAs or whoever is available at a time when you're able to be available. So if the term office hours sounds scary, because literally we used to just sit in our office waiting for students to come see us, and most profs will talk about how no one ever comes and sees them. So yeah, I would imagine that instructors will have set times where they're available to be online, whether or not that's on video chat like this. Some of them you might need to make an appointment with. Some of them might just have drop-ins where you can sort of sign on and they'll have you in the waiting room until they're able to admit you. Some folks might opt for more of the chat option. So Learn even has a chat, just like Messenger, where you can like put your questions in. And I tried that out at the end of the winter semester, and it worked pretty good for students who like in real time needed help with things. So I could be on there for that. Email is always a way to reach out though, although understand that we get a lot of emails, especially right now. So sometimes the reply times might be longer than you like. And if it's a more pressing kind of thing, use the exclamation mark, the urgency setting that you can set in the emails. And if they're having any synchronous activities, so activities that happen at a set time, like maybe they're having a tutorial kind of thing, or the TAs are holding a drop-in, try and take advantage of those, because that's going to be your way to get questions answered, to like learn who the other people are on the other end of your courses that you're basically receiving and they are delivering to you. And different courses might do different things to try and make you feel more comfortable with the instructor. I know I'm going to be posting lots of videos of myself and my random skills, and like other things to try and make myself a little more approachable. And I'm sure instructors want to be helping you guys learn, and can appreciate that it feels super weird if you've never met us to hop onto a video call. Also appreciate though, it's just as weird for us. So the number of times that I've been like, students emailed me, I've made an appointment. I don't know what they look like. This could maybe not be the student who's hopping on here, but sure, we'll chat about whatever they need to chat about, and hasn't luckily been a troll or anything, but it could just as likely be.
So moral of the story, students appreciate the fact that this is just as strange for the professors. Be understanding and compassionate. Okay, yeah. Cool. Thank you.
And you have random interruptions like phones ringing, dogs barking, children crying, just like you guys probably also have phones ringing, all sorts of things going on around you.
100%. So rule for the next semester, be compassionate and understanding. For our senior students who are starting to look into applying to grad school, their main question is, if their primary goal is not research and practice, then would you recommend that they take an MSW or a degree in counseling or a PhD in clinical psych? What would you recommend?
Well, if they're thinking about this, my first recommendation actually would be take a class that I'm offering in the fall term. We will teach you the answers to this. So Psych 336, Introduction to Clinical Psychology, basically is, for some people, probably the most dry and boring course ever, because there's like nothing about abnormal psych really in it. It's all about what it is that clinical psychologists do and how we are trained. Mm-hmm. But as part of that, I also really try to incorporate the perspective that many people in the room might start out thinking they want to become clinical psychologists, probably because they were like me and they have a preconceived idea about what that is, leather sofa, asking interesting questions like, tell me how that makes you feel, or like, how does that relate to your mother, which isn't like maybe what the profession is actually like. And so by the end of it, my goal really is to have helped students figure out what is the right fit for them. So I have often guest speakers come, which they won't be coming live, obviously, but hopefully they'll come virtually, from those other professions like social work, like psychotherapy, like counseling psychology, to help represent how they made those decisions and what the scope of practice differences are between the various professions. And students, if you don't want to do research, for sure, you're probably not going to want to do a PhD anywhere because you have to do a very big research project as part of that. But the other options in terms of more programs that can train you to be to do talk therapy or psychotherapy, there are a ton of options with regards to that field. And again, there's going to be a right kind of fit for different people based on how their marks are, based on the experiences that they've had, based on the population that they want to work with. And maybe don't have to get so stressed about this or this or this, or I don't have the marks. That doesn't mean you can't go be something. Or we can figure out how can you, what would you have to do to bring up your average? Do you have to take a post-degree year? Because the university is happy to keep you here as long as you'd like to stay. They're never going to kick you out. So yeah, I've talked with students about lots of those things, but I honestly suggest my class is a great option for students. And normally, again, this maybe is not supposed to happen. If we were having classes live, I'm happy, and I've invited students to come and attend the classes where particular guest speakers are there. I'm happy to let you know which day a certain guest speaker is coming, and you can just sneak in the back of the room. Shh.
Thank you so much for doing this. And I know everyone's going to truly appreciate having seen this, and we're very grateful to have been able to talk to you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. And again, I would just stress, if you need an academic advising appointment, just shoot me an email and we will try to set something up.